Now we're going to review how to create our basic polygonal models and move them around inside our scene. So, the tab you should have open by default is Poly Modeling, and you have your little orange objects right here, which allow you to create basic polygons. By default, you won't be clicking and dragging like that, so it's worth going to Create, Polygon Primitives, and deciding whether or not you want interactive creation. That's entirely your choice. By default, you click on these, it makes a sphere which is exactly 1 by 1 by 1, or a cube, which is exactly 1 by 1 by 1, as measured on this grid down here. If you want, create polygon primitives, turn on interactive creation, and then you get this option where you click and drag as it instructs you to create their various attributes. Again, it's entirely your choice. Neither one of them is required. Just remember, you want to stick to poly modeling for right now. We will go over curves and surfaces, and we use some NURBS objects. NURBS are different than polygons. They're not made out of a bunch of flat objects stuck together to look like three-dimensional things, which is what polygons are. Polygon, NURBS object. Instead of these distinct points which connect lines which connect 2D surfaces, NURBS objects use these points which hover offside the object, and by moving them around you adjust some math which adjusts curvature averages and forms the object. This will be useful later on, but for right now ignore NURBS and just stick to our good boring polygons. So, after I've created something, I have my WER, move, rotate, and scale, or just Q for selecting it, which allows me to move around the object. So I can grab individual arms on this axis, X, Z, or Y, and I have my channel box open. Channel box is the far right of the top 5, so you can see this thing's attributes. Translate X, Y, Z is where it is. Rotate X, Y, Z, it's how it's rotated. I can change these in here, and you can see Z has become 338. Or with a scale tool, I can grab the center of it, adjust it in every direction simultaneously, uniform scale, or I can stretch it out and squish it and squash it however I like. So, mess around with your move, rotate, and scale tools for a bit, and especially remember you can grab one axis at a time, or you can grab the center, which normally just moves this based on your camera, or however you would like, adjusting all three. And if you grab these little squares between the arrows, this one will move it just on Z and X, which basically slides it along the floor. Or this one would slide it along an invisible wall. And as you create an object, if you have your channel box open, you should see something for its translates, rotates, and scales, and then below here, inputs, the name of the object. In the outliner you can see this thing is called pSphere 1. That's a polygonal sphere, number 1. If I click on this, this gives me a bunch of attributes for how this thing is shaped. For a sphere, it's pretty simple. It's got a radius, which determines how big it is, and it's got subdivisions for its axis and height. We'll go over how to control how complicated these objects later on. Just know that as you create things, you can stretch them out and use your scaling however you wish. You can also come in here and just say this thing has a width of exactly 8 and a height and a depth of exactly 4. You can control these things and adjust attributes like how complicated they are, how many polygons they're made of. So, these are your basic objects. It's worth familiarizing yourself with all of them. If you right-click on the platonic solid, as it's called, you get a whole bunch of other objects. Also remember, under Create Polygon Primitives, you'll have all of these options available to you. So, it's worth going in and familiarizing yourself with all the various polygonal objects you can start out with. And remember, with WER, you can rotate, scale, and move them as you see fit.